Hey everyone, this is Harish Dalal and welcome to our channel CodeChef. So the problem today we'll be taking is TEMPLEA and the problem code for which is TEMPLEA. This problem is taken from past SnackDown online qualifier round 2017. The prerequisites are none. So let's get to the problem. So this is the problem statement. The snakes want to build a temple for Lord Cobra. There are multiple strips of lands that they are looking at, but not all of them are suitable. They need the strips of land to resemble a coiled cobra. You need to find out which strip do so. Formally, every strip of land has a length. Suppose the length of the ith strip is ni. Then there will be ni integers hi1, hi2, so on, hin, which represents the height of the ground at various parts of the strip in sequential order. That is, the strip has been divided into ni part and the height of each part is given. So let's say the strip is this long and it is divided into n parts like that, and for each part the height is given. Let's say the height is this much, or it can be this, means the height is given like this. The strip is divided. So the strip is valid if and only these all conditions are satisfied. So the first condition is there should be a unique center part. This is where the actual temple will be built. By center, we mean that there should be an equal number of parts to the left of this part and to the right, means there should be a center part, and the number of strips, the number of parts on its right and left should be equal in number, and the temple will be built over this part in the center of the part. The h1 should be 1. The first part of the strip should be of height 1. The height keep increasing by exactly 1 as you move from the leftmost part to the center part. As you move to the center part, the height should be exactly increased by 1. So like this, if this is the center part, so from leftmost to the center, the height should be increased by 1 like this till it arrives center. The height should keep decreasing by exactly 1 as you move from the center part to the rightmost part. Note that this means that h of I and I should also be 1. Means from center to the rightmost part, the height should decrease by 1 with each part. So the last part should also be of height 1. So this is the valid strip, and if other than that, it will be invalid. So your job is to look at every strip and find if it's valid or not. So if it is valid, we have to output yes, else no. So in this case, this strip is valid as the starting height is 1 and then it should be 2, 3, 4 until and unless we reach the center, and then should decrease by 1 until we reach the last part, which should also be 1. So let's take some examples. So let's say the length of the strip is 5 and the height is given like 1, 2, 3 and 2, 1. So in this case, the first is 1, which is the second condition, and it is true. And until we get to the center, the height is increasing by 1, and then the height is decreasing by 1 until we reach to the end, and it's also 1. So this is a valid. So it is answer is yes. Another examples can be 1, 2, 3 and 2. In this case, the starting is 1, which is correct, until we reach the center. As it is an even length, we cannot reach the center as there are two centers, so answer should be no. Let's take another. Let's say the length is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 2. Now in this case, the first half is increasing by 1 and it is satisfying the condition, but in the later half the height is not decreasing by exactly 1, because in this case the height doesn't decrease and the last node is not equals to 1. So this is also not valid and the answer is no. So how do we approach this? So first we will be given t test cases, and then for each test case there is a input n, means the length of the strip, and then later n integers denoting the height of each part of that strip, h1, h2, h3 till hn. So these are the heights of the strip, every part of the strip. Now we can store these in an array. Now how do we know that the strip is valid or not? First of all, the length of the strip should be odd, because as we know, if the length is even, then there won't be a single center. In even length there will be two centers, and we just want a single center to build our temple. So if the length is even, the answer is directly no. But if the length is odd, then we have to check the other conditions as well. So first we can do is, if the length is even, means the modulus with 2, means the remainder with 2, if it is equals to 0, then it is even. So we can directly conclude that the answer is no, and we can print no. Else, now let's check the other conditions. Now in this case the length is already odd, so we know that it can be valid. So for the validity, as we know that the strip should be starting with 1 and also ending with 1. The second element from start should be 2, and the last second element should also be 2. The third element from start should be 3, and last third element should also be 3. And similarly till we reach the center, and the center should be, if the length is like 7, the center should be 7 divided by 2 plus 1. So which is 7 divided by 2 is 3, the whole number, and then 3 plus 1 is 4. So the center should be equals to 4. So in this case the length is 7 and the center is 4. So we need to check, does this condition satisfy for a valid strip. Now how we can approach this is, now let's take two pointers, means let's take two variables, which one of them will be pointing to the first node of our array, and the second pointer will be pointing to the last node of our array. We know that this should be same and it should be equals to 1. So let's first of all take two pointers, start, which will be pointing to the 0. 0 is our index, the first index. Indexing is like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So start is at the first index 0, and another pointer is at the end index, at the end, which is 6. So start, and this is pointing to end. And our counter, which should start from 1, as the first value is 1, the starting value is 1, as well as the ending value. So our counter should start with 1. Now let's create a flag, boolean flag, to store whether our strip is valid or not. So initially it should be true. Now we have to start running our loop, where we will be incrementing our start from left till the center, and we will decrement our end from right to the center. And unless and until our start is greater than end, we will run this loop and check whether the strip is valid till now or not. So let's create the loop while, and in this our start, the while loop should run unless and until this statement is true, which is end, which states that start should be less than or equal to end. The while loop should run. As soon as our start pointer becomes greater than end, then we will break out of the loop. Now in this loop, we have to check for each of the pointer, for each of the start and end pointer, whether it is equal to the counter or not. So we are simultaneously increasing the start pointer and simultaneously decreasing the end pointer. So the both should be same and it should be equal to the counter. So let's say if array of start is not equals to counter, it means our start pointer is not equals to counter, or our array of end, means our last pointer, is not equals to counter. If any of the condition becomes true, means either our start pointer is not equals to counter or our end pointer is not equals to counter, then we know that this strip is not valid because it is not following the proper incremental and decremental conditions. So we can directly make flag false and break out of the loop. We don't have to check for next conditions, we can directly break out the loop. Else these both of them are not true, means our start is equal to counter as well as our end is equals to counter, and right now the start is pointing to the first, and end is pointing to the last, and they both are equal to counter, which is 1 right now. So the counter is 1 right now and both are equal. So yeah, we can proceed with our second iteration. But before that, we have to increment our start, means our start counter to 1, and decrement our end counter by 1, and finally increment our counter as well. Now our start is pointing to here and end is also pointing to this next, and our counter is now 2. So we will again check whether these conditions, any of them conditions are true, then we can break out. But still the start and end pointer is equals to 2, so we will go into the else part, which is again incrementing the start pointer, decrementing the end pointer, and increasing the counter. So after running each loop, each iteration for each condition, finally our start and end will check whether this is equals to 4, and yes, and as soon as our start comes here at 3 and end comes here, the loop will break because now start is greater than end. Now the loop gets break, and after the loop gets break, if our flag is true, means we never went into this if statement where our flag is becoming false and for which the condition gets wrong. So if our flag becomes still true, then we'll output yes, else print no, means at a certain position we went into the if statement, this statement, and whenever we went into this statement, this if statement, then it means that our condition is not true of proper incremental and decremental. So let's move to the coding part. Before that, you can try out on your own on CodeChef and come back later to check out the code solution. So I'll be choosing C++ to code. You can choose whatever language you want, C, C++, Java, Python, etc. So first of all, taking the t test cases for our loop. Now we'll be running for each test case. This while loop suggests that we are running for t test cases, and for each iteration t decrements by 1, and unless and until t gets 0, we will run this loop. For each test case we get the length, which is n, and we'll be getting all the heights of n part of the strip. So I'll be storing that in a vector, in v vector, and I'm initializing the size of this vector with n. For using vector, if you are using IOStream, you have to include the vector library as well, but if you are using bits std_c++, then you can directly use this library to use the vector. Now I am taking all the heights as my input by running the loop for n, and now my heights are in v of I. Now let's create a boolean flag to store the answer. Initialize it with true. Now the length of the strip is even, as I have mentioned. If it is even, then the strip cannot be valid at any cost, because there will be 2 centers and we just need 1 center to build the temple. And so we will check whether our length is even, in this case we directly make the boolean false. Else, now in this case our length is odd. Now we have to check for other conditions, like the first node is 1 and then it increments till the center and then decrements till the end, and the last node should also be 1. And for that we are using two pointer approach, so creating the start index which will be pointing to 0 and the end index which will be pointing to n minus 1. So here we are pointing the start pointer to the first index of our array which is 0, and end to the last pointer of our array which is n minus 1, not n, and creating the counter for each step to compare. So start should be with 1 and later on increasing. Now we will run our loop until our start is less than or equals to end. So if at any point, at any condition, if v of start is not equals to counter or v of end is not equals to counter, in this both case, that the start is not equals to counter and the end is not equals to counter, in any of the case our answer is not valid, so make flag false and we can directly break out of the loop. We don't have to check the further conditions. Else, if this not is the condition, then we can directly increment our start pointer to 1 and decrement our end pointer by 1, and as well as we have to increment our counter by 1 as to check for further conditions. Now after performing all these operations, we will check whether our flag is true or not. If our flag is true, then we know that our strip is a valid strip, so we will output yes, and else output no. So let's discuss the time complexity. For each element we are checking whether the particular height is equals to counter or not. So for that we will be iterating our loop from 0 to n by 2, and here we are iterating from 0 to n to get the input. So that's why our time complexity becomes O of n, which is the length of our strip. Now let's submit this code. Make sure to select the correct language. I'm using C++. Okay, so we got a correct answer. So that's it guys from my side. This problem was a practice problem to help you upskill in your SnackDown journey. SnackDown is a highly competitive programming event where coders across the globe participate under the same roof. It is an experience you do not want to miss, and so keep practicing and check out other problems in the mock contest. See you in the next one.